Investor Connect podcast program. This is Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of the show, in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, private equity, family offices, and many other investor groups for startups and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Thank you for joining us. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Geraldo Melzer of A.B.Seed Ventures. Geraldo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Hall, for having me.
So what was your background before investing in early stage companies? What did you do before this?
So my background was basically I worked with M&A for a couple of years. And then I went to do my MBA at Duke. And after Duke, I went for Dell. And at Dell, I started a business, a new initiative to sell to small business segment, but through different and innovative business models, go-to-market segments. And I created a pretty relevant business in Brazil that generated a couple $100 million in the region. And with this experience in indirect sales and technology, I went to the VC space, startup space, and worked in a startup in Brazil that grew tremendously, leading the indirect sales part of the business, which was 50% of the business. Company is called Resultados Digitais. It's like a HubSpot in the region of Brazil, a very relevant business. And this was my experience before starting A.B.Seed Ventures.
Well, that's great. So what excites you these days?
Well, what excites me these days is that we are in a market that is growing tremendously here in Brazil. So for you to have an example, 2010 in Brazil, the volume of investment was about 35 billion reais, which would be like about $10 million. And last year, we had almost 6 billion investment in venture capital in the region. So our country, our region, Latin America, but specifically Brazil, it's really waking up for VC investment and the market is maturing. So it's very excited to be in this environment, in this ecosystem in a moment like this.
Well, great. So for those investors out there, what's your advice for them about investing in startups? What do you caution them to do before they write that first check?
My advice would be that I think the first thing is that you should do this in an environment that you have the ability to evaluate and potentially to help. Usually when you invest in a company, in a startup, it's a lot of risk, right? It's a stage of risk where there's a lot of uncertainty around the business. When that you're not familiar with the environment, the sector, the segment, the business model that this company is working on, your ability to evaluate and also help will be not eventually relevant enough to give you the capacity to analyze and help. So the first thing that I would suggest would be invest in something that you have the ability to study, to form an opinion, to be able to mitigate the risk and go in something that you are more familiar with.
Well, great. And on the other side of the table, those who are running startups, what do you advise them to do before they launch that company?
I would say that really look in the mirror and be true to yourself in the sense that are you found a real problem that you are really wanting to solve this problem, or there's a more speculative approach to that. So when we look at companies and founders, we really want to see people that know we're part of the space that they're working on. So if we invest in a CRM company or in an ERP software, this founder have worked in this segment before. This has a second nature. So understand about the market that you are investing in. It's very important for us, and it's very important for the founder to really look for a problem that is real, and then that he will deliver value. Because in the end of the day, how we're talking about delivery value and helping companies and clients to have success. So if you don't have a problem that really addresses a key point and really solves a real problem, usually this endeavor won't be relevant and won't happen, right?
Well, great. Well, let's talk about the state of investing. You talked about the industry growing rapidly there. What's driving the change and how do you see the industry evolving?
What is driving the change, or I wouldn't say that is one factor, but is a combination of factors. So Here in Brazil, we have a big country. The interest rates are going down. So people are investing more and having more money for startups and forward alternative investments. We passed in Brazil in the last 4 years, I would say, the first two waves of startups and companies that are succeeding and that are being born in Brazil. So today we have SaaS companies, we have marketplaces that are already global companies that have already a lot of funding and successive funding rounds. And these guys are providing new founders that are leaving these companies with playbooks under their arms and more prepared to create new business. So this first wave of business that were born in some specific regions of Brazil that are generating more technology hubs was the spark that was very important to generate the second wave. And then these specific regions, of course, not as strong as the Silicon Valley, but as a reference, like specific regions that are really bringing technology, bringing education, bringing the companies, the private sector together and creating technology hubs. All this environment is generating the technology movement in Brazil. So we're talking about companies that are reaching global point and the economy and the market putting money and believing more on this asset class.
Well, great. Well, let's talk about your fund. What is your investment thesis for it and what startups fit that thesis?
Perfect. So I believe what is interesting is that we are part of this result of this more mature ecosystem in Brazil. So our thesis is 100% focused on SaaS B2B on the early stage. So we invest in companies that are already generating a revenue, that already have clients, but they not necessarily have a go-to-market that can generate repetition and scalability. So our team is not a regular team of venture capital. So we are operators in SaaS. We have a lot of experience, hands-on experience working in companies that grew a lot on SaaS. And our team invests in companies that are in the seed stage to help them create value and reach the Series A. Okay, so we invest in SaaS B2B in Brazil on the seed stage.
Oh, great. Do you have any particular portfolios you can call out as examples of good deals that you've invested in?
Sure, would be a pleasure. I would highlight two investments. One is an ag tech company. This was a pretty interesting case because we entered in this business in ERP, a software solution for farms, for crop farms that have from 2 to 10,000 hectares of size. And what is interesting in this deal is that we broke one idea that people believe that farms will have to do field sales because they are not so tech savvy. But we tested an inside sales, an inbound marketing, go-to-market strategy, which grew and showed to be a success. Today we have 15 inside sales reps bringing in a very healthy MRR, and the company is growing very predictive and strong way. So we just did a Series A last year. Now we are looking for a Series B potentially in the middle of this year. And it's a company that is going in a great direction in terms of economics, product, and market visibility in general. The second company I would highlight is called MovieDesk. The easiest way to explain MovieDesk. MovieDesk is pretty similar to Zendesk in our region, but the profile of customers that MovieDesk focus are more B2B companies. These guys are growing tremendously, and they also have a retention which is absolutely above the average. And of course, all this economics is driven by a product and by a strategy and a culture that is really embracing customer centricity. So these companies also, we entered them a little bit more than a year ago, and we already did a Series A, marking them 4.5 times the value that we invested. And they are right now, international funds already interested in other local funds looking for a potential pretty interesting Series B in the end of this year or beginning of next year. So this will be two companies that are really going in a great direction, and we are with a good perspective on those companies.
So what are the challenges startups in your area face in launching? Is it regulatory? Is it the market? Or is it technical? What do you find they're spending most of their time trying to overcome?
I would say that the first, specifically talking about SaaS B2B companies, one of the first challenges that they face is a product challenge, the real product market fit challenge, right? Is there a big market or some couple of early adopters that are giving a signal, but there's not a big relevant market for this company to work? So the first challenge is really put a product that really delivers value. So I think this is the basic and big challenge that all the companies in our sector and other sectors segments face. The second challenge after they having an initial base of paying customers, like proving that they have something that delivers value, is move from the founder selling process to a structure and team selling process. It's, the founder, it's always easier to sell the dream, to sell the product that he created, that he idealized. But when he wants to create repetition and scalability, he has to have a team. He has to create squads and other teams. And for doing that, it's a challenge. And so I believe that this transitioning of founder selling to creating teams and having the first head of all the areas is the big challenge for this segment stage.
So it sounds like the industry is maturing and growing very well, and people are moving to the next level. You see a lot of sectors and applications there. Are there one or two or three that you think are good immediate opportunities for investors to pursue? For example, what's heating up there?
Sure. I would say that if you look from a SaaS B2B perspective, we are seeing a lot of movement over HR techs here in Brazil. So there's a lot of space for efficiency on these areas. And there's a lot of companies appearing with different approaches to automate and create a platform for end-to-end HR management. So there's a lot of moves happening in Brazil, and companies are getting bigger and getting around. So I would say the HR segment is one interesting. Another I would say would be sales tools / data. So there's a lot of companies right now that are appearing pretty interesting, such as like HubSpot, such as in Brazil we have RD Station, which is a kind of a knowledge company as HubSpot. So the sales tool segment, I think it's really growing a lot. Outbound tools and several deal generation tools are growing a lot. So I would definitely say that the sales tool segment is one environment that is important, that is growing, and there's companies appearing in our region. Fintechs that are SaaS also is something to really look for because it's a gigantic market, but at the same time, there's too many and a lot of volume around there. And of course, that on this volume, there are not only good opportunities, there are a lot of not bad opportunities and there's a lot of noise. And the third, I would say the ag tech sector, because in Brazil, we have a huge opportunity for ag tech, for getting more efficiency for the farm, the crops, the production, the process, create ways to bring services in a more automated and interesting, intelligent way. So I think there's a lot of opportunities on ag tech as well.
Well, great. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here, what else should we cover that we haven't?
I believe that we covered good points. One thing that I believe would be very interesting and important for companies that are starting to think about their first movement and raise their first rounds. We've been seeing here in Brazil the normal phenomena and the normal effect of the valuations going up and people starting to ask for valuations on their PowerPoints. And my call to this, my rationale to this is that people have to be really reflective and do their homework on this, because just get the biggest valuation as they can in their first round to dilute the less as possible. It looks good, but at the same time, you have to create value for that. And if you don't create, you're going to do a down round in the future. So my hint or my reflection that I would say would be, when you're getting your first institutional round, be really thoughtful on the amount of money that you really need. And don't get more and don't get less, but get the amount that you need to move from your first point to the second point. And don't get in hypes, don't get in mantras and waves.
Well, that's good advice. So, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So anyone that can call me there, I'll answer and have a conversation and involve conversation to there. Our website also has a connection point where we also are very fast in answering. So it would be a way to understand more about our thesis and get in touch with us. So this would be two ways easy to get in touch, and we'll be glad to have more interaction with the international community, especially in this next year, because now we are heading to our second fund, which will be a bigger fund and with the same thesis.
Great. Well, we'll include those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Paul Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early-stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions.